Hello, welcome to the first vlog on Get Fit After 40, and it's going to be about a subject that affected me in a huge way, and I'm hoping that maybe my experience can help anyone try and overcome their own problems in regards to mercury toxicity through dental amalgams and the really hard journey that you have to uh, endure to cure yourself and get to the other side. Um, I don't believe in any way that I'm totally cured. I do believe that I've taken a big burden of the toxicity off my body. Um, as most of you probably suffered from mercury amalgams, they must have been probably put in when you were kids. In my case, the amalgams, there were 5 of them, stuck on more or less from the age of, I would guess 6 to 12, something like that. And in the beginning, it doesn't do much, but over time, certain metabolic disorders start arising. And I only started, at the moment I'm 44 years old. I'm 44. And I only realized like something was a bit weird starting at about 27. Just a lot of tiredness. But when you're younger, you're going out, you're doing all-nighters, you're doing a lot of bad stuff, so it's a bit normal that you'll feel a bit crappy the next day. But then after a while, and now for reasons that I truly understand, it just gets really difficult. It came to a point where food intolerance has just skyrocketed. Brain fog was just huge. At the time I was living in Portugal, so a big cultural thing there is coffee. So I started drinking coffee. And the coffee in Portugal is very strong. And I was drinking 4 or 5 a day. Because if I didn't drink, I would just collapse. I remember very specifically, I would come home for lunch. I worked relatively close. I would come home, and if I sat down on the couch after eating, I was done. I was done. It was like I had a 100-pound weight on me. Just to get up and start moving, it was really difficult. I remember like this tiredness is just not good. You want to be doing things and you just can't. Certain things started affecting me over time, and it's just this whole tiredness. And I would go to the gym, become exhausted. DOMS, which is down onset muscle soreness, I can't remember exactly the term, the muscle soreness that you get after working out, would last for about a week, if not more. I mean, if I really pushed, if I try to do a leg day and I said, come on, let's just break this thing, let's just break it. And I push hard, do a really good workout. I couldn't, like, for the next 2-3 days, the next day would be more or less okay, but then after that, the muscle soreness would manifest itself, and it could be there for 4 or 5 days. And it was just too much. It's like, well, I'm not making any progress because it would hurt, but I'm not making any progress. I had this one thing that's very important with this that I forgot is that I started getting severe acne at 16, 17, and it stayed with me until about 22, 23. Very bad acne, very bad scarring on the back, and not particularly bad on the face, but very sensitive around the mouth, around the nose. I was lucky because I haven't got very intense scarring on the face, but it was painful, and you always knew that there was something there. And this I also attribute to definitely to the mercury. The mercury just undoes everything in your body. Things just stop working. And it's a toxic thing, and I think that the acne is actually your body trying to expel it through the pores. And then what you start doing is you start taking anti-inflammatory stuff. You start taking antibiotics, which just totally destroys your gut bacteria, which makes everything worse. Then because of the amalgam fillings, my teeth started having certain issues because the amalgam fillings weren't properly done. So I start getting inflammation and toothache, like really severe toothache. And then after the toothache, I would get extremely severe strep throat. It came to a point one day where I couldn't eat for more than a week. It was really, really terrible. I couldn't swallow. It was like shards of glass. I couldn't eat for more than a week. I lost close to more than 10 kilos. And at the time, I was relatively young, relatively skinny. Everything dropped off. And I was like, wow, all these things are happening. It's like, there's something wrong. There's something wrong. I don't know what it is, but there's something not good. Then internet comes along and we get this huge deluge of information coming across. And slowly but surely, I started thinking, wow, mercury stuff. And I really came to the conclusion that it was mercury. In Portugal at the time, if you talk to anyone about mercury or amalgam poisoning, people would just look at you like, what the fuck are you talking about? No, you're fine. And just carry on. I started detoxifying myself, I would imagine about 7 years ago. 7 years ago, I decided like I'm gonna try and do stuff. And I heard about the coriander chlorella mix, and I started doing that. And I could definitely feel something going on. You know, the coriander, for all of you who don't know, what you can do is you can mix coriander, just blend it into a smoothie and drink it. It's really good if you do it with a lime, a whole lime, with skin and all, because there's components, there's pectin in the skin which binds to the mercury and pulls it out. So what happens is that the coriander, the stuff that looks like parsley, you must know what it's called. I'm thinking of the names in Portuguese, yeah, but it's coriander, and it's well documented as being a very, very powerful mercury detoxer. The issue with coriander is that even though it releases the mercury from within the cell, it doesn't transport it out of the body. So what happens is that you lift up all this toxicity, and it's swirling around, and then it distributes itself in other places of the body. There is a feeling of relaxation. I don't know if it's the cell membranes that are breathing properly or something, but you can definitely feel something. But then afterwards you feel like crap. So you don't really know what's going on. When you start putting in the lime, the pectin picks up some of it in the digestive system, and it takes it out. But it's obviously just very, very minute quantities. There is another product called chlorella, which is an algae. It's an algae. It looks like pond scum essentially, but it has a very, very high affinity to bind to toxic metals, cadmiums, mercury, leads. It can actually bind to that stuff in the intestine and just transport it out. That stuff does work, but the problem is that as you're lifting up all this mercury, you just get you constantly go up and you go down, and you go up and you go down. You go up and you think, wow, I'm good. Now I'm good. But then you go down again. And it's just very frustrating. You think you're making progress, and you certainly are, but it's not really good, the mercury coming into your system and pushing it down. But that was something that I did for a long time. I did take a medication called Detox, which was really good. The only issue is the price. I mean, essentially what it is coriander extract and chlorella, but chlorella sold at a price that's, in my opinion, just a little bit too high. You can get the chlorella that you should use is a specific chlorella that is called broken cell wall. The actual membrane of the chlorella is smashed and crushed so that it can permeate into the system and latch onto the ions and the molecules of mercury that are roaming around, catches onto them and takes them out. But you can get broken wall chlorella at most health shops at a price that shouldn't be more than £15, $15, €15, somewhere in that region. And you can just buy yourself some regular coriander from any supermarket, if you can get it organic, no pesticides, no stuff like that, no herbicides. And if you take that, it does work. Now, what I really want to tell you is another part of the puzzle that is extremely, extremely important, and that makes a huge difference in the time that it takes for you to get the mercury out. And this is probably one of the biggest health hacks that you can have. And it's so extremely easy and it's available to everyone, but it is just so, so important. And it's based on a process called methylation. Now, methylation is a process inside all of our mitochondria, in all of our cells. It's something that goes on 8 billion times a second in your body. All your cells are just revving up with this little engine doing its stuff, and you need methylation. Methylation is just a transfer of ions and molecules from one process to the next, and what happens is it's like a big assembly line. It's this huge assembly line that needs all the nutrients to shuttle energy, nutrients, proteins, enzymes in and out of the cell, and within the cell's mitochondria. It's just what makes everything work. It's an extremely, extremely complex process. What you can do is try and look up online. I'll probably put a link down in the bottom. It's called mapping. I can't remember the term now, but it's actually a lot of diagrams showing how everything is interwound, and it's very complex, but it's really, really, really interesting, because you can start seeing how if certain nutrients aren't available in your body because you're not putting them in your diet, certain processes will just fall down. Now, what happens is that this methylation process should work for everyone, but apparently up to 40% of the population have got a genetic mutation called MTHFR. Everyone says motherfucker. I saw that, I thought motherfucker. Okay, it's the MTHFR gene mutation. What happens with this gene mutation is that 40% of people, generally the people who are really affected by toxicity, it's because this gene mutation doesn't allow us to detox correctly. That explains why some people can get amalgam fillings and they just go about it as if there's no problem. But other people, compounded over time, the whole methylation process just gets constantly pounded by the mercury and all the other type of contaminants that assault your body. And it comes to a point where you've just run out of resources. And these resources are just your average stuff, your B vitamins. You know, your B1s, your niacins, your biotins, your I can't remember the name of them, but your B vitamins, your vitamin A's, your C's, the E's, the K's, all of them just start wearing out. Not wearing out, but running out. And the important thing about the whole methylation process is that it's constituted of so many different parts and different components. So if, for example, you just run very low on vitamin B6, it compromises the methylation process. So other things further down on the assembly line stop working. And what happens is it's like clockwork. The whole system is like clockwork. If one of the cogs loses a bit of traction, then everything just starts doing this. It's not moving smooth as it should. One thing that's extremely interesting is that I would take a substance called a supplement, a sports supplement called ZMA. ZMA is just zinc and magnesium and vitamin B6. And when I would take that, I would just sleep like an angel. I had really weird dreams because that's part of the effects that it has on a person is just really vivid dreams, and then I'd wake up in the morning and feel, wow, that was really interesting, and would feel as if something had really happened. You can feel it coming, hitting you, and doing something. ZMA is quite not controversial, but because it's just zinc, magnesium, and B6. It's very, very simple stuff. But a lot of people take it and they don't feel anything. They say, well, I don't understand. I'm paying £30 or $30 for zinc and magnesium, which is overpriced, but it's not doing anything. But I would take it and I think, wow, this stuff is the bomb. This is fucking great. It makes me feel, you wake up in the morning and you just go, well, okay, let's do something. And what happens is that the zinc, magnesium, and the B6 are extremely important components of the methylation process. So as soon as you start taking that, it just revs up your methylation and puts you on a point which is probably more baseline normal, because you're performing at a sub level. And especially with Mercury hitting you, then everything just goes down, because you can have various MTHFR mutations. One is called homozygous, which means that both your father and your mother had this MTHFR deficiency and you got both of their genes. So what can happen is that can actually knock you down by about 70% of capacity for the whole methylation system to work as it should. There's another thing called heterozygous, which means that only one of your parents gave you the gene, the faulty MTHFR gene, so you can work at, you lose about 30% or something. But if you're homozygous, which already means that your capacity is low, and you get mercury toxicity, then you're in a very, very complicated place. And I believe that there must be so many people around the world who just suffer from so many different illnesses. And the insidious thing about mercury is that based on everyone's own genetic weaknesses, like the mercury attacks your weakest component. So in one person it'll be difficulty breathing. Some people it'll be inflammation in the skin. Other people it can be gout. It just manifests in so many different ways, and you can't just say that no, this is mercury toxicity. This is so many different things, hitting you, and everyone's symptoms are just totally different. So now, knowing that you have got mercury toxicity and that you do have a gene, there is a way for you to find out. There's a company called 23andMe, which you send them. I haven't done this yet. I plan on doing it soon. What you do is, I don't really know if I'm missing the MTHFR gene. I really believe I do. I'm not quite sure if I'm homozygous, which means I've got 70% from both of my parents, or if I'm just heterozygous, which means just one of my parents gave it to me, which means that I would be down by about 30-40%, something like that. I really believe from what I've seen that I am MTHFR deficient or a mutant, because it's actually a gene mutation. Okay, now how am I going to put this? So if you have mercury poisoning, it's quite simple. Amalgams, eating a lot of fish, you can feel it. If you've got amalgam fillings, definitely got an issue. If you've got a lot of physical conditions that you're not quite sure why you're having them, in the top of my list is mercury. If mercury is affecting you in a very, very bad way, then it is like a more or less logical conclusion. It's not absolutely sure that your MTHFR mechanism and gene mechanism in your cells is compromised, and then with the detox, the mercury stuff, it's a clusterfuck. It's really bad. Now, the good news is, even though MTHFR is a deficiency, it doesn't mean that there's something that shouldn't work with you. It's not like it's not a death sentence, or it's not written in your genes that it won't work and it'll be constantly going downhill and it will be the cause of illness and death and all that bad stuff. That's not the case. What's really quite interesting is MTHFR stands for methyl tetrahydrofolate reductase. I remember that. Okay, and what that means is that it's a form of converting various types of B6 vitamin, or B9, into a folate compound that is methylized in the methylation process and puts other components working. That might be a bit confusing. But what happens is, one thing you have to avoid, like the plague, okay? Don't eat grains, don't eat any of that type of stuff. You've probably got intolerances already, you probably know that. So, grains, gone. Grains and cereals, just take them out. Mostly because they're not that nutritious, and also very much because of the fact that because they are there's a nutrient deficit in those things. Governments in the 80s or 90s came to the conclusion, I think it was in the end of the 80s, that they should start supplementing a lot of grain-based foods with folic acid. Okay, I'm sure you've heard of folic acid. Folic acid is, just let me check something out. Yeah, it's B9. I would think folic acid is B9. They started supplementing with folic acid in a whole lot of things. And now, essentially what happens is that part of the methylation process, in normal people, they can convert the folic acid into folate, which is what you want. You want something called methylfolate. Methylfolate is an essential component in cell metabolism. It makes everything work really, really, really well. The problem is taking in folic acid with the grains clogs everything up. And essentially what happens is that we eat a lot of grain-based stuff. If you're eating pasta, if you're eating bread, if you're eating rice, if you're eating all that stuff, what happens is that their content of methylfolate is practically none. Okay? So now the big thing in this is, big thing, really easy to implement and just so good for you. It'll make you feel like you've lost 10 years of your life, you just regained 10 years and you've shed about 20 kilos in this heavy thing that just keeps bringing you down. Methylfolate makes everything work wonderfully. And you can find methylfolate in green, leafy, brassica, vegetables. It's just as simple as that. Broccoli, watercress, Swiss chard, kale, lots of different types of lettuces. All of these lovely, lovely green things are full of methylfolate. So when you start intaking the methylfolate through the green stuff, and another thing that's really, really important, methylfolate is a huge component in this, but certain foods like watercress and Swiss chard, which is probably something that you don't really eat that often, and if you eat watercress, it's just as a garnish, it's just like parsley. No, get yourself Swiss chard, get yourself 100 grams, 200 grams, and just eat it. Okay, slice it, don't cook it, slice it, get some nice olive oil, get some turmeric, get some curry or any type of seasoning that you want, herbs and spices, and just eat that. Do this. Swiss chard and kale are a bit weird. I generally saute them, and I prepare them just very lightly sauteed. I don't want to kill all the enzymes. I just want to loosen them up just a little bit so that they're easy to chew, because they can be quite rubbery. But for example, watercress, even lettuce is quite high in methylfolate. Swiss chard, broccoli, very, very, very high. I'm forgetting a few, but you get the picture. The green stuff is full of methylfolate, and it's full of vitamin A, vitamin B, vitamin C. It's full of everything. There's nothing better for the human diet than green leafy vegetables. Absolutely nothing. It should be the backbone of your diet. I've discovered this a while ago, and I've started implementing it, and it's truly, truly amazing, because you just get this, you eat it, and for the first couple of days you don't really feel as if anything's happening, but then you just discover that your systems seem to be choppier. Everything seems to be working as it should. So the really important thing is, if you're going to be doing Mercury Detox, yes, the coriander pushes it out of the cell, which is really good, and the chlorella binds to it in the digestive tract, so it has to leave the cell and it has to get to the digestive tract through to various things, through the liver probably. Yeah, I think it has to probably go through the liver or through the kidneys. The chlorella won't affect the kidneys because that's urine. The chlorella comes in and it comes out, and when it comes out, it's bound to some mercury. When you do that, as I said before, it's very taxing on the system. And what it's taxing is the whole methylation process. So if you can have green leafy vegetables as the main component of your meals, and it's really important as well that you have protein, because your body in the methylation process needs an amino acid called methionine, which is extracted from protein. So you do need protein in the cycle, in the methylation cycle as well, for it to work well. So if you just have green stuff, and that's why a lot of people who are vegans and vegetarians, they haven't got enough B12, and B12 is essential in the methylation cycle as well. So if you haven't got enough of that, stuff just starts breaking down. So it's really important that certain components, and it's almost guaranteed that all the components that you need for the cell membrane to work well, you can find in leafy green vegetables and a good portion of grass-fed, non-GMO fed animals. Like get yourself a nice piece of steak that's grass-fed. You have yourself some Swiss chard, some watercress, and a nice piece of beef. You are king. At least that's the way I feel. I eat that, and I had so many different issues with food. Should I be eating gluten, not gluten-free? I was vegetarian for about 2 years, because things weren't right. Like, it's going to be the meat. So I took the meat, and I would just crash. I didn't feel good. As soon as I started eating meat, I felt better. I don't like the fact that I'm eating animals. There's obviously a social conscious thing about that, but biologist, in my opinion, just says no. You need the meat. What should happen is that the animal that you eat should have had a good life, because if they had a good life living outdoors, they're healthy, they're happy, they're doing their thing, and their energy, their health comes into you and is part of your health. If you eat a sick animal, you get sick. It's as simple as that. All the pandemic that they're having in the States is very much based on everything is totally based on wheats and grains, and even the animals are eating wheats and grains. Hopefully you understand that a cow should be eating grass. That's what a cow eats. It's got 7 stomachs to eat grass. That's all they do. You see them in the wild. What do? They just go moo and eat grass. That's what they do. They don't eat corn. So if you're eating protein source that was fed corn and soy, you're eating a sick animal, and the animal was just bombarded with antibiotics and hormones. And you eat that, it makes you bad. Okay, that's just a rant. But if you get yourself a good source of protein, or nice fish, for example, some salmon or trout or mackerel or sardines or cod or something like that, get yourself really, really, really leafy green, preferably organic, leafy green vegetables. Can even be lettuce. Some lettuce is quite rich in methylfolate. Obviously, the darker green, the better. Okay, the darker green will give you more methylfolate, and that's what you want. Methylfolate is just totally incredible. If you can stock up internally on methylfolate for a while, your whole system will start working better. Then, sporadically, make a mixture of coriander with the lime. Just put it in a smoothie and beat it up. It's very zesty. And you can put some broken wall cell chlorella in that as well and drink it. And then throughout the day, you should just be drinking a small amount of chlorella, just so the coriander comes in, it releases the mercury. And as the mercury is released, then throughout the day, you just take small doses of chlorella, which should constantly in your GI tract hold on to it and push it out. But very essential green leafy vegetables. Methylfolate, MTHFR, it makes such a big difference. And it's not using these weird abstract drug type things like EDTA and all that type of stuff. No, it's just your body doing what it should do. And even though we do have a deficiency in the MTHFR, it doesn't mean that our body doesn't work. Our body's just trying to synthesize folate in us. But that's like a defense mechanism, because in essence we should be able to get it in the diet, which we can. Shut out the grains. Shut out the grains. If you've got an MTHFR type thing and you're having folic acid, even if you haven't got amalgam problems, the folic acid will get you. It's not a natural product. It's man-made, because folic acid is not found in nature. It's a man-made compound. What we want is folates. There are a lot of different types of folates. The chemical structure is a very complex thing, but folate will be defined by a certain chemical structure with a few variations. There's this product that I take, which is really good, and the folate is methyl tetrahydrofolate calcium salt. This is a brand. This is a 2 per day multivitamin by Life Extension. Really good brand, because, for example, they don't use folic acid, and for vitamin B12 they use methylcobalamin, which is, if it's methyl, good. Anything that says methyl is generally good. B12 is generally cyanocobalamin, which is actually cyanide. Don't have cyanide. How can they put cyanide in? It's not, technically it's not cyanide, but it's a component of cyanide in a multivitamin. That's just fucking crazy. That makes no sense. These guys are good. They've got a lot of products. I use a couple of them. They do sell a methylfolate supplement, just methylfolate. If you're really in a bad place, I would recommend having that. But as I say, you can get it in your green leafy vegetables. Go big time on Swiss Chard. Swiss Chard and Kale and watercress and Bak Choy and Chinese cabbage are just powerhouses of nutrients. They are just incredibly nutritious, and they just make you feel good. If possible, have 200-300 grams a day. It should be the backbone of your diet. Principally that, some nice protein, get yourself some nice fruits and tubers. I don't like grains or any of that stuff. Sweet potato is the best. Yams, turnips, parsnips. That is brilliant. If you start eating that stuff, your body just starts going, whoo, what's going on? So get well. If you are on this journey, I know it's a struggle. I know there is so much information around about what you should be doing. It's really confusing. Really confusing. Sometimes it feels like there's no light at the end of the tunnel. Try and revert back to the KISS principle, which is keep it simple, stupid, which is just try and distill everything down to the simplest components possible to work. I don't believe in terms of diet there is anything simpler and more rudimentary and more basic than eating leafy green vegetables. No one has had any problems by eating leafy green vegetables. Some people have problems with dairy, some people have problems with gluten, some people have problems with peanuts. All of these type of things can manifest themselves differently in everyone. No one in the history of the world has ever had medical problems because of leafy green stuff. That's a fact. It's a fact. Unfortunately, the taste isn't very compelling, but it is just wonderful if you have them mixed with a nice fat. Some olive oil, some coconut oil, some ghee, which is concentrated butter. Just melt some butter as well, put it on them. A nice dose of Himalayan sea salt or any type of sea salt, Celtic or Celtic sea salt is good, because the sea salt is also full of minerals, which are really necessary as well. We need the zinc, we need the magnesium, we need the iodine, we need all that type of stuff that is found in sea salt. Apparently, if you take your blood and extract the red platelets from your blood, the plasma that's left behind is essentially seawater. We come from the sea, and we still try and keep our inside in that same type of state. So do that. Try it. Your health deserves it, and your well-being definitely deserves it. Try it. If it helps you, give a thumbs up to the video, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments on the bottom. And if you need any type of assistance, I'm more than willing to give you any pointers, because I know the difficulty that we face because of mercury toxicity. It's just a really, really bad thing. The quicker you can get it out of your life, the more you can live life to the fullest, which is what we as human beings should all be trying to do, live our life to the fullest. So, okay, see you around. Good luck on your pursuit of health, wealth, and happiness, and see you soon. Thank you so much.